My childhood best friend chose to marry the person who SA'd me after I revealed to him what he did to me. Now classmates are harassing me, saying I'm trying to ruin his perfect life. So, growing up, I, F27, had a childhood friend, Angie, F27, who was as close as a real sister. We spent entire weekends at each other's places, celebrated family events, etc., all the way from 6 years old to 18 years old. I even lived at her place in 2nd grade while my parents were going through a nasty divorce. I learned to speak some Russian as she is Russian, and she learned to speak some Spanish. Needless to say, her older brother and little sister were like family to me. During our teenage years, she had her 2 male best friends, one whom she started dating, and another one, Nico, now 29, who was Russian as well, whom I started dating at 17. Growing up, I had issues with a heart condition, and I won't bore you with the details, but I had to take a lot of meds, but got healthier starting from 16. I didn't have to take them daily, but only when my heart rate became irregular. But then immediately, as it would become extremely painful, my heart would cramp and I would start to hyperventilate. All my friends knew this, Nico included, and that I would black out if my meds got taken with alcohol. I didn't smoke much or drink much growing up as a result, since I was worried about my health and only did drink at home in a safe setting. Legal drinking age is 16 here, and I only drank wine or beer if at all. Now, I had my first time with Nico at 17, when my parents stayed at a retreat for 2 weeks, and later he came over to have a date night. I did drink 1 glass of wine, but I started having health issues later, resulting in me taking my meds and being unconscious. I was a bit sore the next morning, but didn't think much about it. Then 2 weeks later, I'm informing Nico that I'm late on my period, and he starts to panic, confessing he had sex with me while I was unconscious. We had it before, so he didn't think much about it. Apparently, he didn't have a condom, but since I was on the pill, he figured it was alright. And also, he didn't finish inside of me, but into a tissue. But I felt violated and disgusted by myself. I didn't know how to describe this, and I only told Angie about it. I was an utter mess for a few years and wasn't able to have sex again until 2 years later. I didn't remember any of it, but was too ashamed to go to my mom or anybody else. I didn't think of it as SA back then. I was too young to really understand and how I was violated. And Angie told me it's alright. I should break up if I feel bad about it. But we were in a relationship and we did have sex before, but I broke up with him the following day, and apparently he cried about his broken heart to her. As Nico and Angie were close and hanging out a lot together, they started dating a few months afterwards, and I had to see him every time when visiting her. I told her I'm not able to see him, but she didn't understand where I was coming from. So the contact stopped and we haven't texted or seen each other in years. I still followed her and her family and saw that her brother is expecting his first child. As I was extremely close with her family, I just commented on the Instagram post expressing my gratitude. Then he reached out to me. I missed his wedding, but he wanted to ask if I would be interested in joining the baby shower, as it's been years and we've been extremely close before. He told me I was like a third little sister, and I just asked if Nico will be attending as well, as Angie and him have been dating for 9 years now, and he said yes. I didn't elaborate much, but just expressed that I'll send a small present if he can give me his current address, but I won't be attending. And then he kept on pestering me, asking what exactly happened all those years ago and why I'm not in their lives anymore. Angie told her family I'm not able to see her with an ex of mine, but her brother thought that there's more behind it. And then this is where I think I could be the a-hole. I told him the truth about what happened back then, and while I didn't know it at 17, I now know that this was SA and I named it as such. I didn't receive any message back from him for a few days, but then later, Angie reached out to me, furious. Nico had planned to propose during the baby shower, but Angie's brother is against it now, having learned why I stopped the contact. She loves Nico and will stay with him, but by doing so, her brother said he is no longer a part of his life, and he doesn't want his little baby girl in the same family as a man who SAs people. And since then, I've been getting messages from old high school acquaintances telling me I should have ignored it, and I shouldn't have told anybody. And since I didn't speak up back then, I lost the right to do so now. And that I'm a horrible person for ruining somebody's life over some stuff he did 10 years ago when he himself was a child as well. So, am I truly the a-hole for speaking up? Then, in the comments section, OP replied to multiple comments about how things are wrong and how she should speak up and said, I understand now how wrong it has all been, and that it is SA. But we grew up in a small town with approximately 5,000 people, and I honestly don't know which way it would have gone if I would have spoken up. He was 19 back then, 2 years older, and everybody is in everybody's business. It would have made sound back then, like it does now. They all still live there, and it has made its rounds. That's why so many of our old classmates are reaching out. Most of who still live there have left me furious messages. They have known Nico for all of their life and are standing by him. As for me, I moved out when I was 20, my mom shortly after, and didn't stay in touch with most. It still breaks my heart to get such a furious response from people who are my whole childhood. And thank you all for your best wishes. I genuinely appreciate it. Then OP replies to other commenters saying that Nico ruined his life, not OP, and said, I understand that what happened is on him. The backlash I am getting is because he apparently is not that person anymore, and something he did as a teenager, according to Angie, should not ruin his life, and is in no way related to the daughter her brother will have. I don't know if he will ever act out or do something, but it doesn't invalidate what happened to me. So thank you for confirming this. I just can't stop to feel bad about this, having so much consequences. While I do not want to see Nico or Angie, I have made my peace with what happened to me back then. Then one user commented and said, So, why are they attacking you and not the brother, OP? You're not the one objecting to the marriage. Just feels like misogyny and victim blaming, to be honest. So, I'm guessing because he is family and I'm the outsider who ruined their family? I've been getting so many messages from people who didn't even have my number back then. I'm blocking the best I can. It's just hard not to let these comments get to your heart. Then user 2 commented and said, Not the a-hole. They got together so soon after the two of you broke up. I can't help but wonder if your friend was convincing you to break up with Nico because she was hoping to get with him all along. Yeah, I honestly don't believe it. They've known each other for years and she broke up with her boyfriend 2 weeks before I broke up with Nico. It was a 5K town. Even adding the people from our age from near villages, our school had 500 people attending, hence the options are very limiting. Then OP elaborates on the possibility of getting therapy and said, So I was in therapy for 2 years and found peace with what happened to me. I am lucky, as I have no memory of it, but that didn't make it easier. It took me 2 years to be able to have any form of sexual contact again, but I am okay now. It's a part of me, but it's a part I can live with. But honestly, thank you for your kind words. And then finally, OP elaborates on her health issues at the time of the incident and said, Oh, it's not drunk blacked out. My medicine back then was supposed to lower my heart rate extremely, as I would have a racing heart rate and my body would start to shut down. Hyperventilating, my heart not being able to follow such strong use and basically tripping over the high heart rate. My heart would start skipping beats, then not being able to follow my thin blood flow, which is faster than a regular one. And the skipping would be the painful one as it would start to cramping up. I'm sorry if I'm not able to explain it better. English is not my primary language and I lack the medical vocabulary to fully describe it. The pill slowed my heartbeat and general body functions, thus making me extremely tired. I'd mix it with alcohol and it would basically act like a super strong sleeping pill. Honestly, my body could have been thrown off a cliff and I wouldn't wake up. I did give consent for the first time we had sex, but that was our first and only time. I don't know if we would have done it back then if I would have been conscious, as I didn't like it, being my first time and all, and wasn't that eager to repeat it. I don't think calling it SA is wrong, but from what I had issues with is if I should approach this subject more sensibly. And that way I can understand that I ruined their engagement plans for next week, or his surprise of one. Update. 10 days later. First of all, I am immensely thankful for all the people who took the time to not only read through my story, but also comment. I read every single comment, and I tried to respond to as many as possible. It gave me a little bit of hope of comparison for victims of SA, and also the courage to not cave to the backlash that I received. As for a mental update, reading all the messages defending my choices on speaking up made me realize how insecure I was on what I am allowed to do and how much I was trying to make it right to other people besides myself. This especially including Nico and Angie. And all of you are right. If Nico had changed, he would have apologized and reached out or tried to make amends in some way, either when word got to him from his brother-in-law or at some earlier point in his life. And then my former best friend Angie should have been able to feel some sort of compassion if she had any respect for me as a human being or the time we spent together. Her reactions showed that I shouldn't hesitate on my actions. I went to therapy from 21 onwards and thought I moved on from the SA as best as I could, but I realized how ashamed I still am almost 10 years later about an incident that wasn't my fault at all. I was ashamed to speak up back then and afraid that people around me would look at me differently. And somehow I still felt bad about speaking up today. So I'm trying to own what happened to me now and not apologize for other people's behavior, especially as they don't even show me respect. As for what has happened since my last post, I archived every nasty message I got on WhatsApp so I wouldn't have to read them, but would have the proof if needed at a later point. Also, Angie's mom called me the following day of the incident crying. I shouldn't have answered the phone, but during the 10 years of friendship, I saw her as an aunt, almost a second mom. She always joked that while her children would run around the house doing whatever, I would always take the time to drink a tea and talk with her, showing her more love and time than her actual children. While she said she's sorry for what has been and for what I went through as a child, she couldn't believe that I would ruin Angie's happiness over something like that. With Angie's brother refusing to have Nico as a part of the family and Angie standing by Nico's side, it's divided their family, and she is heartbroken. She says she has grown to love Nico like family as well, and has known him as nothing more than a considerate young man who she knows will make her daughter happy. It wasn't nasty names or angry talk, but just a heartbroken mother who faked to acknowledge my pain and saw the fault in me. Angie's mom tried to get me to apologize or take it back, but I refused as I don't see the fault is with me. With everything that has happened, I believe that Nico hasn't changed and it's just hiding it better somehow. He can see how people are standing by him and supporting his behavior so he won't have to change. And that is something I didn't want to indulge. Angie's mom didn't even try to use the word SA, and I tried to correct her every time she talked about it, trying to name it for her to understand better, but she would just start sobbing more, and it didn't make sense for us to continue to talk. Angie's mom used to be in contact with mine for some time, and she reached out to her after our talk. I was afraid that my mom would find out, since she's more from a conservative background. We had a long talk and I didn't see her physically yet, but she apologized for not being there for me or not making me feel like I can talk to her. I tried to calm her down as best as I could, but when she asked me if my current partner knows if I was used like that, I got angry. She was scared my partner would leave me if he found out, implying it was something that made me less precious or appealing. And when she asked me to keep it a secret from our family abroad and in our country, I hung up. She was acting exactly the way I was afraid she would, as if it's something shameful. It was especially hard as I am trying my best to move away from the feeling of shame. She has since apologized, but it's clear that her view of me has changed. I don't yet know how to deal with it, but that's something to worry about in the next few weeks. And as some of you suggested, I wrote Angie's brother, Sven, again and apologized for the mess. But I am glad that it is out in the open and how proud I am that he's defending his family. I asked him if his old email is still working, as I would just send a gift card, but he didn't respond. But I did get a message from his wife 2 days ago. She thanked me for speaking up and informing them about Nico. There were apparently a few moments that made her uncomfortable, some jokes that Nico made, and in retrospect, she can see why. Sven apparently informed her the moment she got my initial text message, and both of them have since seen Angie, but not Nico. She refuses to be in the same room or house as him, and same goes to their unborn daughter. Then Sven and Angie's mom have been at their place multiple times to beg to forgive Nico, and Sven caved a little. Angie and Nico will get married. Sven will attend, but his wife will not. He is allowed in the family, but not in contact with either Sven's wife or daughter. Those restrictions are not from Angie. Sven was suffering, trying to ease his mother's worries, and is not able to take a stand and cut them out completely. This is a compromise they made without his wife's approval, and she told me she's trying her best to cut them out of their life indefinitely. She wanted to move back closer to her family as well, and thinks this is a perfect opportunity, but isn't sure if she can follow through. His wife told me she's terribly sorry for all the issues that came my way, and it has been a lot trying to handle the situation on their side. Then Sven knows it's not my fault, but he doesn't want contact with me. It's hard for him to talk or see my name because even though he knows I'm not the guilty party, in some way I was the bearer of bad news, and he sees me as the start of all of this drama. She told me a few times that neither believe I'm the bad guy, they're just tired with everything, and it's just been extremely hard on them. And that is all that has happened so far. I'm frustrated about how everything came to be. It feels like Nico will just continue with his life without having to be remorseful. I didn't want him to suffer, but I think some part of me wanted to at least receive some kind of apology for all of the suffering that I went through afterwards. I'm having to deal with my mother and her changed, shameful view on me. And even though I'm happy it's all out, it's extremely hard to stand by my choices. My partner and my best friends have both been my shoulder to cry on during this ordeal, especially my best friend who was enraged for me. And I am extremely grateful to have both of them by my side. Right now, I'm just emotionally drained, but I'm sure it will be better once a few weeks have passed by. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "You spoke up and you did the right thing, OP. If others can't handle the truth, that's their problem. Keep focusing on your healing and your support. Then user 2 commented and said, not the a-hole. Unfortunately, it's a tale as old as time. The woman is blamed and the SAer gets off without a blemish. Only by speaking the truth over and over will the situation improve, and when the boomers die off. And then finally, user 3 commented and said, 100% the right thing, OP. What you did may keep Nico from attacking someone else, or may encourage one of his other victims to step up. You never know how much people like you help everyone else when you stand up and speak out and are not ashamed of what was not your fault, but will point the finger at the one to shame. You're making the world a better place, OP. And I'm sorry for the family Nico misled and the wife who was foolish enough to stay with him. But it's no longer your business. You did the right thing, and it's going to help others. If no one else says it to you, thank you for doing all of this. You're amazing. New update. 3 months later. My first post was 3 months ago, and this one will be my last update for now. It is not a good one, but I sincerely wish to leave it all behind me. That includes distancing myself from this Reddit account. These posts have helped me let go of my anger, similar to a journal, and I am grateful for all of the people who are enraged with me. And I hope to open it again someday with a final happy update. But for now, every little pop-up is a reminder of the anxiety I am still dealing with. And I do not have the energy to deal with this topic outside of my therapy anymore. I felt like I was the scapegoat at the time and received a lot of hurtful messages from both their friends and former classmates. They called me out on ruining a man's life based on a childish mistake Nico made when he was 19, and then even Angie's mom reached out to me at the time. I was left to pick up my life, my mom being more ashamed than understanding, and I started therapy again. I removed almost everybody tied to that incident, Sven, Angie, Nico, their family, old classmates, and only kept contact with old classmates who sent me messages of support. But onto the update, I work in a very specialized field. To get the proper qualification, it takes an average of 6 to 8 years, bachelor's, master's, and then state bar to be allowed to practice. While it is not very competitive, not a lot of people choose this profession, and it is highly sought after. My current company paid for my master's and my extensive course as preparation for the bar exam, and I've been doing well there. Well, my HR department called on me 2 months ago. Apparently, they've been getting a lot of outside calls from Angie's mother and other relatives, saying I am involved in a Me Too scandal and being a liability for the company as I don't have issues ruining the lives of men. How they could imagine this could change anything I do not understand. I work for a global company. They have known me for years. I've never had any issues prior, and quite frankly, they do not care. However, they have been getting frustrated with the amount of calls and apparently even reached out to the police, and the calls have stopped since then. Nonetheless, they reached out to me to check on my mental well-being, offering to give me paid leave until it settles down a little bit, and offering company-paid therapy. And by the way, therapy is covered by my country's health insurance, but it is tricky to get one without waiting time. But I already had my old one on retainer and started going right after the incident. And they have made it clear that they have invested a good amount of money into me and do not wish to lose me. I was ashamed that this part of my private life slipped into my professional one. It started to influence the career I worked hard for years to build. And while my company assured me that it would not affect the workload and clients I'm getting, word got around. And it was clear for my colleagues that I am going through something nasty, and the company does not want to deal with it. All of this stress and anxiety led me to hyper-focus on my work. I took on whatever I could, paranoid that another call would come and for whatever reason, the company would move me to a dead-end department where my career would basically be over. And at the same time, I started looking into different companies who would be able to buy me out as I am tied to my current company for 5 years after graduation. 3 more are left, and I got a management position at a rival company with a huge salary jump. I couldn't be happier about it, and I was just relieved I wouldn't get the pity looks from my colleagues anymore. And I went to the police with all of the hateful messages and the HR protocol with the call history and got a restraining order for Angie's mom. Should she contact my new company again, I have a public LinkedIn and it's needed for my job. At least I have some sort of proof that her words hold no meaning. I got asked if I wanted to pursue the SA, but decided against it. It would open up the whole ordeal again, and I don't have proof, besides Nico and Angie not denying it, and quite honestly was afraid of what it would do to my career. I also did keep in contact with a good friend of mine who grew up in the same small town but moved away 5 or so years ago. And we share a Nintendo Switch Online family account, so we tend to be in contact at least once a year for a short phone call when she has to send me the money for the subscription, and we just tend to make a phone call with updates out of it. And yesterday was one of those days, and the whole Nico thing came up. While she didn't hear it directly, her mom is still living in the same small town and reached out to her, asking if I'm alright. She expressed her disapproval about how everything came to be, as she was close with Angie back in the day, as well as remembered how close we were and how often we would spend time together like sisters. She then updated me that 2 months ago, Sven's baby girl was born, and while neither Nico or Angie were seen in any of the pictures or stories with the baby, a month ago, Angie and Nico had an engagement party. Both Sven, the baby, and his wife participated and are in the family pictures. I remember how enraged Sven's wife was and how she told me how she felt uncomfortable with Nico. But now, it's all forgiven and forgotten. Nico's parents own a few houses and gifted Angie and Nico a house close to their home. And Sven and his wife apparently bought a house in the same street. It's as if nothing has happened at all. Listening to my friend telling me the updates, I'm honestly not sure if I should have asked her not to tell me anything. I just feel empty and betrayed. Not by Angie, she made her choice. Not by Sven, it is his sister. And at the end of the day, when he asked me what happened and then didn't have the decency to answer me because he saw me as the one who ruined his family, it was clear that the truth didn't matter. And not by Sven's wife, who has a baby girl and innocent daughter who she should protect as a mother, even though she told me she would do her best to keep her daughter away from Nico. I fought to have it all behind me, just to have this old wound ripped open again 3 months ago when Sven kept plastering me. I got hate messages, but knowing that maybe someone would be hesitant towards Nico when he showed strange behavior made me feel like maybe I did the right thing. Maybe by speaking up I helped a girl not get SA'd. My own mother was ashamed of what happened to me and told me I was to keep quiet so my family abroad wouldn't hear it, just for all of it to be good again for Nico. After everything that happened these last 3 months, I truly understand why victims of SA choose not to speak up. Then in the comments section, one user said, OP, as a victim of the same type of abuse, though not SA, from a former romantic partner, you are worth more than you think. You do not need to suffer in silence or shame. You didn't do anything wrong or anything to be ashamed of, and I'm so proud of you for telling the truth. From one survivor to another, you are worthy of love, acceptance, and happiness. Life has not betrayed you, even though it feels like the world and everyone in it has turned their back on you. People do care, you matter, and you will outshine the shadows of your past when you find the courage to embrace the future with open arms. I believe in you, and I am proud of you, and please keep being you. And then finally, user 2 commented and said, OP, I hope you get to heal and have no shame. From the interaction with your mother, she sounds Latin, which can be very tricky with this stuff. Nevertheless, her reaction is not on you, but on her. And also, Deutsch? I am unsure if so, but in some small tiny towns, they are very backwards. All that doesn't matter though. You get to deal with this at whatever rhythm you feel comfortable. You are not used. You are not less than. You are a woman that has survived. And I send you a very big hug. So yes, my mom is Latin, but I grew up in a small village with maybe around 5K people. My grandpa used to be a pastor, which makes it so much harder. Even though my mom has been living in Germany for 30 years, she speaks perfectly, even with the local dialect. She's not progressive. It doesn't help that the small village itself isn't progressive much either. I moved out with 18 and never looked back. In her eyes, it is my fault since I had a boyfriend at 17 and now I am damaged goods because of the SA. We don't talk about her hurtful words anymore, and she is trying her best to be more understanding, but at the end of the day, it is internalized. I know I am not less, but after everything surfaced, the shame, the anxiety, just to come back to where I was after I worked years to get over it, it will take time again. I'm sure I will get there again, even though it doesn't feel like it right now. And my partner is telling me over and over again, reminding me of my worth, and I am sure one of these days it's going to stick. Thank you for your kind words. So, this is one of the sadder, more mellow endings we've had in a while, but unfortunately also not very uncommon when it comes to this type of stuff when someone of a victim of SA speaks up and people just plug their ears and say, "What? I can't hear you," which just feels incredibly awful for OP. I do have to say, while she didn't mention it much, it seems like she has a good current support system with her new best friends and her partner, fiance, husband, whoever. And again, while she didn't mention it much, it's good that she has someone to be there for her. These new people who are not terrible. And we've read so many stories, I say this all the time, so many stories about small towns, sub 10,000, a couple hundred, a couple thousand people, and just what goes on in these towns. Is something in the water, maybe? I don't know. I can't be sure at this point anymore. But again, as I always try to focus on the positives and make people laugh, or at least try to, like I mentioned, OP's got the support system, she got her new job, she's in therapy, she knows that she will eventually get better, and I think that's good. She's done it before and she can do it again, and that's the positive that I will end on. But anyway, guys, we are at the end of the video. Thanks for watching, commenting, all of that. Have a really good day, and bye-bye!